All right, everybody, how are you doing? Hope everybody's enjoying their lunch. I think that was the time you were supposed to speak. Let's try it again. How's everybody doing? Woo! Still reeling over David Barr's session? No, thanks everybody, and thanks for sticking with us. We are gonna kick off the lunch program in just a second. How many folks are joining us for dinner tonight? Or staying over and wanna join us for dinner? Okay, we're meeting at 6 p.m. downstairs in the restaurant. Got that? 6 p.m. And make sure we know you're coming. All right, next we have our working lunch session on the labor crunch. And I know people have been waiting around for this topic. So without further ado, let me turn it over to Pete Ginsberg, the founder and CEO of Onaroll. Pete?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. What an event. Thanks, Lane, Brad, and the whole crew that set this up. This is my first springboard, so it's been a blast. It's a pleasure to be discussing what I think is the most critical topic: employees, people, and more specifically, recruitment and retention strategies to overcome the labor crunch. I'm Pete Ginsberg, the founder and CEO of Onaroll, a software startup that inspires shift workers to perform better and, you guessed it, stay longer. Before I go any further, though, excited to introduce the incredible panel, starting with Gary, who currently owns and operates 65 Supercuts across multiple states. Prior to Supercuts, Gary owned and operated businesses in retail, entertainment, food service, and the travel industry. He's on the board of directors of Supercuts Franchise Association and of the CFA. Nice. Welcome, Gary, and if you could give a couple more details about yourself, that would be great.
I think you got it. How do I work on microphone? No, I think you got it there, Pete. Thank you very much.
Next to Gary, we have Ed, who's the CEO of Capital Restaurant Group, an operator of Italian-themed restaurants, Paisanos, and has a deep history in franchising, as I was learning even more last night, beginning with one of the two original folks at Jiffy Lube. So welcome, Ed. What else can you add?
No, you got it.
Glad we got a talkative bunch today.
Pete, you're on a roll.
Chris is the CEO of Freddy's frozen custard and steak burgers, just as of a couple months ago, as the chain was acquired by Thompson Street Capital just in March. Prior to that, Chris was CEO of Global Franchise Group, which owns lots of great brands.
Yeah, thank you. I will add
Thank you.
that I'm a late addition to this panel because we had someone step out, and Lane's like, hey, can you fill in on a panel? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then he's like, it's labor, and I'm like, oh, God. I'm like, thanks, Lane. So appreciate you, buddy.
Are you making
throwing me into
excuses
this
already?
Yeah, I am, actually.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I know some of you are customers, and those of you who have not met, happy to share a little bit more about myself, and more importantly, Onaroll, and why the heck I'm up here moderating this great panel. So, my background is at various startups, and then more recently at Starbucks, where I had the opportunity to join Kevin Johnson and the leadership team to build what Kevin called the Moonshot Group, as he stepped into the role replacing Howard Schultz after decades of leadership. Kevin really wanted to sort of formalize, institutionalize the innovation in 5, 10, 20 years out. So he asked me and the SVP of Innovation to build the Moonshot Group, which he didn't really give us a lot more direction than that. And over the course of a couple years, we built a group called Siren Ideas to find external ideas, technologies, and partnerships to bring into Starbucks to improve the customer and employee experiences. Through that, we did all sorts of cool stuff, which we can save for another time, or you can find me after. But really the thing that stood out to me most at Starbucks was how every single decision is about the employee. Whenever we would bring something to Kevin, we'd talk on and on about how great this is, whatever. When we would finally stop talking, without fail, he would say, will our baristas like this? And if it didn't pass that test, Starbucks would not pursue it. Didn't matter how big the revenue opportunity is or how cool it was, it had to do right by the people. And as a result, the morale in the stores is amazing. The productivity in the stores is super high, and Starbucks has industry-leading retention. So very inspired by that, I decided to bottle up a lot of the tactics and strategies to make it, to bring the Starbucks mentality to shift workers everywhere, beginning in quick service restaurants. So very quickly, I don't want to just be talking about Onaroll. I want to get to the questions, but hopefully this provides a little bit of context. The way that Onaroll works, we work with primarily quick service restaurants today and understand what their key pain points are or what they want their team to be doing better. Typically, it's showing up on time or selling a certain high-margin item or improving drive-through speed of service. And then we go directly to the team members. They're number one to us. Everything we do is team member first. We go directly to the team members and we say, hey, if you show up on time, sell more sour cream, or improve your drive-through speed of service, you get points. And then you can use those points to redeem all sorts of perks. We have 500 different brands, Nike, Adidas, Spotify, and more. And team members are obsessed with earning these points and chasing these rewards. And as a result, these businesses that we are fortunate to work with really see the metrics moved in the right way, more higher sales, faster speed of service, and more. And of course, through that, and this is a long lead up, but through that, we've seen that team members stay much, much longer in their jobs because they feel appreciated, celebrated, and rewarded. So with that, would like to ask the group, and we can go one by one, and I have some specific questions for each of you. What have been the most effective tactics that you've seen to help with retention?
Y'all looking at me? Okay. I will tell you that one thing that we did at Freddy's that I thought was very telling and it gave us an opportunity to, I would say, do better. I don't know that anybody's really winning right now as it relates to labor. Really, we went out and surveyed all of our employees. So much like we would our guests or to glean insights as to why people choose Freddy's to eat there, we spoke to our staff in a survey fashion as to why do you work at Freddy's? And one of the things that we noticed that was a resounding call from almost all of our employees was that Freddy's really is founded on hospitality and being hospitable. And when we close our guest areas, that hospitality piece and that engagement with our guest was taken away from our staff. And so where we were closing dining areas and focusing on drive-through, carry-out, and delivery, we were taking away one of the things that our staff loved most about working at Freddy's. And so it was driving people to leave. And so as we all know, replacing staff is terribly expensive. And so we looked at the cost benefit of staying open in our dining rooms and opening our dining rooms at minimum capacity and so on and so forth, but giving our employees the opportunity to do what they loved most, which was engage with our guests. We saw immediate improvements in retention. And, when you look at the industry, I was saying, at Freddy's, we typically retain close to 70%, or our turnover is 70%, and this year we're really struggling at about 87, 88%. And Ed just shared with me that the industry is like 140%. And so, talking to your employee base, understanding what drives satisfaction for them, and then making sure that you're delivering on that is, I think, a great way to keep people engaged.
You looking at me?
Sure.
So, being in the restaurant business, like Chris, sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're smart. My wife will tell you that I'm usually lucky and not smart. But when I joined Capital Restaurant Group, it was 3 weeks before COVID. And when it hit, I had luckily picked a model that was perfectly built for COVID. 90% delivery off-premise and our own driver fleet. On the other hand, the industry was screaming for the same bodies that we were looking for. And so we literally became in a war, and the war turned out to be mostly against third-party delivery platforms that take no prisoners. So there's nothing more demoralizing than to have a driver in your restaurant watch an Uber Eats uniform driver come in and get the order and take it away. And so it was pretty clear that we had to change something. If you want something to change, you have to change something. So we created an impact program And it was a silly acronym, but it made it easy to remember. And the first thing was, on the industry side, restaurants were decimated. And so when tens of thousands of restaurants close or reduce staff, there's a golden opportunity to go out and recruit those employees. So we focused there first. And then we looked at and by the way, that 140% turnover rate, Freddy's too humble to, or Chris is too humble to say this, but his is in the 60s and 70s. So you're doubling your rate of turnover, and you're wondering why you're having trouble finding people. I think the answer is you're not doing your job. And then on the methodology, which is the M part, it was like, how are you going to reach the people by position? You're not going to look for a cook that speaks Spanish at LinkedIn. You had to target your focus where you need to go. And quite frankly, we were able to create a benefits program that was tailored to each position. We made our GMs the opportunity to be a managing partner. They make 5% of profits every month, and we sit down with them after the end of the month and look at the P&L and show them where they could have made more money, and that's where we would make more money. We give our veteran cooks overtime as much as they want, and we make sure our drivers get their credit card tips by the end of every shift. So we had to tailor the benefit to the position. You couldn't do one size fits all. And I tell you, the biggest thing is the attitude. And I wish I could have made the acronym start with an A, because it does start there. And you know, I'm older than most people here, and I will tell you, crises come and crises go. And there have been some pretty intense ones in America over the last 40 years. And when we launched our company, the unemployment was at the highest ever. The prime interest rate was 20%. I want you to go to your bank and try to borrow money at 20% and see if the P&L works. But you go to sell franchises, and the guy would look at me and go, I can put my money in a tax-free long-term CD and get 14% and go to the beach. Why would I want to buy a franchise and work? So crisis has come. It's your attitude. If you don't have a relentless focus that I'm going to beat this thing, it's going to beat you. And people ignore that part. Perseverance and relentlessness is a big part of getting through crisis, and your team needs to see you like you're like a duck. You're cool on the surface, and underneath you're paddling like a son of a gun. So we're looking at the culture. We're identifying our employees much earlier now. It's a nice discipline that we've been able to put in place because we were forced to. You know, who's a talented person? Find their strengths, show them the career path. If you're discussing their future with you, they're not thinking about going anywhere because they understand that you care about them. I mean, every website should have it's about them, not you.
Well said. Gary, you did not have the luxury of takeout during COVID.
No, not at all. But Pete, I'll answer your question. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm a franchisee, so I'm from the good side. And I am so happy to see that I am no longer the only franchisee here. Thank you, Lane and Brad, for that. But look, I'm going to answer your question specifically, Pete. Like tactics, I don't need any tactics. I'm in operations. Okay, I need strategies from my franchise partners because tactics are short-lived, have little impact, and have a lot of hair on them when you roll them out to your new employees. Oh, hire-on bonus, $3,000 for new. What are you doing with all your other employees? What message are you sending to them? All those little tactics have hair on them that we've chosen not to do. And so sort of what David Barr was saying, this morning, you have to be brilliant at the basics. And the basics are, today, for hiring, look, you got to have the why behind it. You got to have a purpose, okay? You got to have the culture, and you got to have the compensation. You got to be brilliant at those things. If you're not brilliant at the basics of those, the fancy stuff isn't going to work, okay? If you can't block and tackle, the flea flicker play isn't going to work, okay? And that's what a lot of what I see a lot of us trying out there today. When it comes to the purpose of your company, look, we've all heard it for a lot of years. Hey, the currency of millennials is purpose. Yeah, so yeah, like we did all that, and we had a good purpose and everything. But it turns out like they're a little. I think they've been a little bit fickle lately. They changed. Now their purpose is work-life balance. Okay, so we're struggling a little bit to switch. Yeah, it's still about purpose, but now they kind of changed the rules of the game a little bit on us. So you got to have the purpose. You got to have the culture. Okay, Look, if you're not rewarding, if you're not doing the basics of rewarding and recognizing your best team players, somebody else will, okay? And it won't be you. And so, and people sometimes ask me, what was the biggest mistake you ever made in business? And one of them comes to the culture. I did the culture, okay? I wrote the mission, the values, the core purpose, the core beliefs, all that. I made these big signs, put them up on the wall, stuck them on every wall, and good, I'm done. Culture, done. I delegated the culture to the wall. It was the biggest mistake I ever made in business, okay? And I had to pull that back, and it took me years to bring it back. I own the culture of the company, okay? I meet every new employee. I tell them what we believe in, what's important for them to do to be successful in our company, and what they can expect from us, and what we expect from them. So usually I don't address operational issues. If I don't have a relationship with that key operational person, but if I see a cultural violation, okay, I own it, and I will step right in and introduce myself and make sure that I address the cultural issues of the company. And the third thing is compensation, okay? Look, you gotta be careful. If they come to you for money, they're gonna leave for money. And if you raise, I'm an operator, I run units, okay? If your franchisees just raise compensation without increasing productivity, they're gonna destroy the business model, and they're gonna go out of business faster under this. So yes, we're in an environment where we have to raise wages, but we've also got to adjust the business models to increase productivity. Whether you could do that in price or whether you can do that in other places but you have to do it, otherwise your franchisees are going to be in trouble. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you. Each of you touched on culture, which is clearly so important. Chris, I'm curious, stepping into a previously founder-led business, what you saw stepping into the business that you really want to crystallize and make sure that it sticks as you know, the founders graduate out.
Sure. Freddy's really stands on 3 pillars, which is genuine hospitality, exceptionally high quality, and cleanliness. And, it's also a business that, if the founder, the spokesperson is a World War II veteran who was a Medal of Honor, Medal of Valor recipient. So there's a level of patriotism and Americana, pride, loyalty, family. And so as we think about, what the brand stands for, and regardless of who's at the helm, that is what Freddy stands on. And so those things can never change. And I think that as it relates to labor, the culture of Freddy's, there are certain people who love that. And so targeting that audience and also playing that up in our social and digital and how we go out to recruit, because unfortunately we are losing employees, and so there is the challenge of recruitment, and so I think that doing a good job of telling the culture story in your efforts to recruit is important.
Thank you. Ed, you have a unique challenge because the majority of your team is not in the store, so it's even harder to build a strong culture.
I mean, it is and it isn't. We're going to take your platform and use it, so everybody hears it. Use that.
Thank you.
We also went into the restaurants during COVID when it first came out, and we're asking them to be on the front line. This is when we were doing delivery, and it was a scary place for them. And if you think back from day one, we all wanted to look forward to getting up and going to work every day. If you don't enjoy going to work every day, the money starts to become less important, and now you have 2 reasons to leave. So we went into the restaurant and observed the environment of the restaurant, and we're average 1,500 square feet. One is 990 square feet, and we're doing $1.3 million, $1.4 million out of those small footprints. And the founder's technology was horrible. There was no app. So 70 to 80% of the orders were coming in by phone. So if you can picture a 1,500 square foot peak time, we were watching on the cameras. Manager would go up, pick the phone up, hang it down. Go up, pick the phone up, hang it down. And so we realized we have got to change the technology right away. So we did a sweeping change, and that technology has made all the difference in the world. Our online orders are happening so that you don't have the interaction with the customer, you don't get screamed at by the customer. We put in a new system that allows the third-party delivery orders if we use them. Usually they go into tablets, and then you got to manually enter it from the tablet in the POS. Now it comes in seamlessly. Most of the employees are so gracious and happy that they have an opportunity not to be yelled at and actually do their job. But the important thing is, what's your environment? You can talk culture all you want, but if you don't implement it, if you don't do the things that make sure they have a fun environment and an enjoyable and safe environment, they're going to leave as well. So we focused a lot on technology and the environment in the restaurant as well.
Thank you. One thing that I think a lot about are these tight feedback loops. As consumers, we're used to, Ryan Hicks will put up an inspirational quote on LinkedIn and expect likes to come in right away. And, we open our Uber app and the driver shows up in 5 minutes, and we're very used to this. And then on the labor side of that, an Uber driver completes a trip, gets rated, gets paid that day, and that's super tight feedback there. Same is true with some of the folks we won't mention that you compete against on the food delivery side. Yet in shift work, this feedback loop is very long. Someone works a shift, they have no idea really how they did, and then they don't get paid until 2 weeks later. Ed, last night we were chatting, and you mentioned Wisely. This is not a plug, I don't know the company, but there are lots of them that do this. Curious how you think about finding ways to tighten that feedback loop and getting them paid faster and that sort of thing.
Well, a lot of our employees live paycheck to paycheck. It's a reality. So, and drivers are in incredible demand. I can't begin to tell you. Amazon, FedEx, Uber, and so people are seeing that as a way to earn money without working too hard. And we're trying to make our drivers feel a little bit more special. We went out and we had an integrated system with our payroll and our POS, and so every day when those drivers make their last delivery, they don't have to come back to the restaurant to get their credit card tips, and it gets deposited automatically in their Wisely card. It's good at any ATM, and they can kick the money out that night with no fee. So again, it's like finding ways to make their life more enjoyable, to show them you care, and then they are looking for a career path with you, and you get momentum. It's all about environment and making sure that they feel like they have a good spot there. But technology, don't underestimate it, because if you're making people do things they hate to do over and over and over again, it's not fun.
Yeah. So I think I know like 5,000 things in business. 4,993 are like what not to do, okay? And I think one of the lessons I learned about our employees during this time is, look, we opened up and we pushed hard, right? And we're going to keep our hours, and we're going to push our employees. And I look back on that as a mistake, that we had to focus on their well-being a little bit more. We pushed them hard. They couldn't eat, they couldn't pee, and they couldn't. And they didn't see an ending. So the only way that they could get out of it was by quitting. And so we had to back off on operations, okay, a little bit, whether that was hours or whatever it is, to make sure that our people got some time and got some rest a little bit, because I would have pushed them, and certainly with leadership. Hey, I can get anybody to do anything for 3 months. I can get them to do it for 6 months. I can get them to do it for 9 months. All right, but it got a little crazy there at 12 months, and as far as we are into the pandemic, to keep pushing them. So we've backed off, and when we're open, we're executing. Okay, we're not running it thin. We're not running our people crazy. We're just making sure that we've stabilized the business, and when we are open, we're doing it like we're supposed to be doing it. And I think that has really stabilized our employee base, more so than anything else, other than compensation or anything else. That we were bleeding people during this time, and that has when we focused on the well-being and cut back so they could get a little bit of a break, it stabilized everybody.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a great observation. One thing that caught my eye.
I wanted to add.
Oh, please.
That. To your point, at Freddy's we never operated thin. In fact, we allowed our managers the opportunity to overlabor to create a better environment inside the restaurants. And so, we're willing to take a little bit of a margin hit in an effort to avoid having to, retrain our entire staff. And that worked out well for us because it, again, quality of life. We actually started to see some areas where we were capitalizing on throughput because we had more people in the restaurant, and so we were able to drive sales. But never did we ever consider running thin. And we also, as a corporate store operator and to our franchise community, we advise them, when you see your numbers slide, hire like it's a new restaurant opening. You have to, the environment is different. This isn't your run-of-the-mill, I need to, replace 2 or 3 employees. You're down 10 or 15 employees in a restaurant. Start the same tactics you used when you were going out to open this restaurant, deploy those and try to bring in the 100 applicants, the 200 applicants, because people are moving fast, and you're going to need more volume to keep up with the increase in turnover.
Can I comment
Please.
on that, moving fast? We contacted Indeed, and my purpose was to find out how we were doing. And they actually measure for you. And they told me that the average response rate was 8 days, and the average review was 51%. We were only looking at 1 out of every 2, and it took 8 days to do it. I'm telling you right now, if you're not responding same day, somebody else is, and they're gone.
If you're not doing it's respond, interview, and paperwork in 3 hours,
Yeah.
and onboarding immediately. If you're not doing that, you're losing them to other people.
You're losing them constantly.
How have you changed your process in order to be able to stay up and move quickly to stay on top of that? Who have you had to hire, or tools that you've had to use?
HR and operations, it's every day you get up and you ask them what they've done, and you check the measurements every day. I mean, you have to do it. It's not like an every once in a while job. It's now a permanent part of the business.
We've had managers that have asked applicants to send them a TikTok audition. Just thinking else, try to meet them where they're at. Zoom, FaceTime, communications, also creating interview windows. So you can have an interview today anytime between 4 and 7:30, and just shoot me a text message when you're ready. So being extremely flexible in meeting the prospective employees where they live.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, meeting them where they're at, not just share more experience, like, here's another thing that doesn't work. Our employees have moved off the job boards. Mm-hmm. That's not where they're not there. They're not on the Indeed, the Snag a Job, the whatever it is. I mean, they're not there anymore, so we're trying to meet them there. That's not where they are. I think I know where they are, but they keep moving around on me. But yeah, you definitely got to meet them where they are. But I don't think it's job boards.
You know what? On that note,
Social, digital.
yeah.
They're at school. We have a lot of our employee base is teenage, high school aged, and so all of our franchisees in our corporate stores that do local store advertising, with all of our advertising, it's typically been shifted more towards an employment ad, but also talking about the great things that Freddy's does from a product perspective. And so, very heavy for us, very heavy focus on high school placement and advertising within the high schools themselves.
We just recently found a treasure trove, and I'm kicking myself for not thinking of it before, but there's in your office, in your files, there's a ton of people that were former employees who left for varying reasons, and you don't know. I mean, we are calling them and saying, is the grass greener on the other side? Is it what you thought it would be? Would you like to come back? And we're starting to get some significant movement from that. I wouldn't overlook that.
We also pay referrals, and it's been quite a good use of our money.
We had a couple different people ask where they are, and it's a good question. I think, honestly, a lot of people are in here and don't want to do anything that's not a couple clicks away. There are more and more tools. One that comes to mind is literally, it's called Heroes Jobs, that does TikTok-style videos for application. and it's meeting the team members where they are to try to be as relevant as possible to them, and really communicating the employer value prop and what you're giving to them other than just this salary.
Yeah, and for us, and I think this is somewhat true, when you're trying to meet them where they are, where are they? Well, it depends who you're looking for. Like if you're looking for someone who's just entering the industry, they're not at the same place that the person who left the industry and is looking to come back in. So those two people are in different spots, and then of course there's the people who are now in the industry and are currently employed. So we're looking in 3 different spots for 3 different types of people. They're not all congregating in one area. So you have to take a look at your workforce and where they're coming from, new to the industry, currently employed, or just kind of left and are thinking about coming back. They're all in different spots.
I saw a couple days ago, First Watch Restaurant Group filed to go public, and one of the things that they had in their S1 filing was their a daytime dining concept. So they are advertising no nighttime shifts ever. And for them, it's literally one of the first lines in their filing as a really strong value add as a business, because they can attract better talent. So curious how you've thought about shifting your proposition to employees, if at all, over time.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that because one of our, I thought was our strongest propositions was growth. And look, I don't need any more salons, okay? but I'm going to keep growing aggressively because I have to create opportunity and security for the people that are there. And the best people want to work where they have a chance for a bigger future for them and their families. So we keep growing. We kept growing just because we're trying to attract the best people, because that's where the best people want to go. They want to go where there's a buzz and a better shot for a future for themselves and their family. And for me, I'm learning, that message is not resonating out there right now. The growth, the bigger future, the best future. What's resonating right now is the work-life balance. And so we're toying around with how we have to adjust our kind of messaging around that. And again, I hear you about like no night shifts or no Sundays, but I don't know how that applies like 2 or 3 years from now when your competitors come in and are operating during those times. What do you say then? That feels like it has hair on it to me, like I'm just kicking the can, and it's a tactic and it's not a strategy that is gonna, it's a shorter term, and I always try to lean towards like the longer term play on it.
You just got the wrath of a franchise operator.
And over time, I think the employee value proposition just like can't be understated. I think that Ed, you've had strong growth recently with your brand and been able to retain a lot of people because of the flexibility. So of drivers, and they really set their own. As you said last night, they're like go from one spot to the other, and they're happy to do that.
Well, I think it's pretty public now that restaurant employees that left aren't coming back to the industry because of the work environment and because so many were reduced hours or just let go. I mean, probably the highest labor group was restaurant employees in terms of being let go, and they say, I don't want to go through that again. So we didn't let one person go during this COVID crisis, not one person. And it cost us some money, but we looked at it long term, and we wanted to show to them that we're just as loyal to them as we'd like them to be to us. But again, we're fortunate with the business model that allowed us to do that. But the everybody's seeking things that don't get exposed to COVID. I mean, that's the fact.
Mm-hmm. Shifting from that to what we're doing every day to recognize employees. Each of you in your opening talked about the importance to find ways to constantly recognize. Would love to hear some examples in your current roles and stuff you've seen over the past years that have really stood out and impressed you and really resonated with employees.
Well, I can tell you that we're a little more lenient than a lot of folks as it relates to developing employees and then letting them go work with franchisees and so on. And so I can tell you, in our corporate store operations, we're in a constant state of building employees that either have opportunities to do more, become certified training employees that then get the opportunity to travel to the extent that they're old enough and all of that good stuff. Travel and do openings, give them an opportunity to earn significantly extra dollars as they're helping us grow our franchise business. As our franchise partners develop, and fortunately we're in a brand where we open a restaurant about every 8 days. Every time we open a restaurant, we hire over 100 people, and so those individuals in our corporate store base, we will let them leave if they have an opportunity to go work for a franchisee and make more money and take on bigger challenges. And so at Freddy's, it's well known within our employee base that opportunities are readily available, and people who work hard and do a good job are the first ones that get a shot.
So we have a couple programs. One is, we have these type of lanyards I'm in the salon business, so they have these lanyards on their stations, and we're constantly awarding pins, like for when they get a review on Google that's 5 stars, or their anniversary pin, or their training pin, or this pin. So it helps me a lot, because I can walk into the salon and visually see who the hell's killing it and who's an idiot. Okay, and what needs to be, it's actually, for me, it's visual. So that's one thing. Another thing, and this is an interesting one, is I'm writing hundreds of cards a month. I do an anniversary card for everybody, and I do a birthday card. Now, out of all those programs, all the rewards we hand out, and I sign all those cards, and I get the most feedback year after year on the employee birthday cards. I don't know why. I get messages constantly. You're the only person who sent me a birthday card. Constantly. I don't know why. I'm not saying it's a tactic, but the birthday cards for us it brings a tear to their eye that I'm the only one sending them a birthday card.
Just personal.
That's amazing.
Great idea.
It's a lot of signing. It takes a couple hours, 2-3 hours a month. But I have an admin prepare the whole list, and I just go right down and I write their name and sign them a message, and then hand them back to her, and they get them all mailed. So it only takes me a couple hours. And we, at our height, we were just under 500 people. We're down now, so I'm doing a couple hundred cards a month. But it's
pretend like
worth
you're
it.
Patrick Mahomes autographing.
And then my admin came to me and said, we should get a rubber stamp.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you are completely missing what the hell is going on. That's like task versus essence. Okay, you got the task of it, but you got to have the essence in the culture.
I love that. That's really amazing. I'm personally very inspired by Danny Meyer's concept of enlightened hospitality, where employee is number one, customer is number two, and investor is number three. And really just understanding that by exceeding the expectations of the employee, they're able to turn around and exceed the expectations of customers, their friends and family, and beyond. But it all starts with employee is number one. So I think the moments like what you just shared, Gary, certainly do that, and employees understand that recognition, and it goes a long way.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how much traction the birthday card thing has. I don't know why. I could care less if somebody sends me a birthday card.
Well, thank you for the wisdom. Happy to open up to a couple questions. Yes.
And you said earlier that you are now performing exit interviews. And I'm wondering, do you get right to the point in that exit interview or say, hey, why'd you quit our company? Or do you try to sugarcoat it a little bit? And what are you finding now? Because we just started this month, and I'm anxious to see what you have experienced in the last month of your exit interview. What's happening? What's 2 questions you ask?
So if you ask my wife, and I'm answering the question directly, but when she asks me if she looks good in something, I'm literally telling her what I think. And it's worked over the years because now when I tell her, she knows I'm really telling the truth. It's a message to all you guys out there, by the way. It's very productive. But my point is, I don't sugarcoat. I don't think people want sugarcoating. I think people want candor. They want to know how you feel about them. So that's the whole purpose of the exit interview is did we fail you someplace? Is it a family issue? And if I said, you don't have to open up to us, but it'll help us be better with the next person that comes in. It's not a vanilla exit interview. I think those are the worst things possible.
And any answers you want to tell us that you've received?
They tend to be more candid back. They'll tell you if it's pay. They'll tell you if it's their boss. They'll tell you if it's a family issue where I have to be at home. You know, something happened at home. I mean, if you can elicit out of them what happened and you start tracking that. We had one gentleman who he lost a custody battle. He had 2 kids. And he said, the judge told me if I'm not working at home 2 days a week, I will not have joint custody. What do you tell that? It doesn't matter, we need you. So, you know, it's like Chris was saying earlier. I mean, you have to personalize. I mean, Gary, first of all, every great idea comes from franchise operators. Any franchisor that thinks they sit in a corporate office building and come up with the best ideas is crazy. Am I wrong there?
You're 100% right.
So this is the guy I would listen to because they live it every day. They breathe it every day. But I hope I answered your question.
So I'm going to build on that question just a little bit differently. We did the exit interviews. We found out all those reasons. It didn't work for us. We couldn't affect change unless, of course, it's the manager, you know. Where we found some success in exit interviewing, it was the time period they had been with us. If you left within the first 90 days, okay, that usually 90% of it was like a problem. Like most of the people left in the first 3 months, okay, those were some identifiable reasons that we could actually fix. And then if you left between, you know, the first 90 days and a year, that was a different kind of set of problems. And if you left after like 2 or 3 years, so we broke down how long our people were staying with us, and that really gave us. This is why those people they fixed that problem, and then we fixed the one. So I'm just giving a operational tactic of how to look at it a little bit differently.
In terms of social media, you mentioned making immediate contact with somebody. You know, they apply, you right away text them or email them or call them. You know, right that second. I'm 47. I have my own kids, 16, 17 years old, and there's a rhythm to how they respond to texts and Instagrams. If you answer too quickly, you're not cool. If it takes too long to answer, you're not cool. You know, so there's this, you know, they just texted me right back. They must be desperate, you know, or whatever it is. So, are there any at my age group the distance between me and a 25-year-old in my head is not that far away, but in reality is tremendous. Are there resources, or is it up to trust, to hire an HR person who is 23 to 27 years old that can understand these social media rhythms of communication at that age group that doesn't exclude what I think is an appropriate speed of communication versus what they think is an appropriate speed of communication? I expect an immediate text answer. My kids think it's uncool if you respond within an hour. So are there resources out there that can determine how do you learn to speak that language at this age difference?
I think it's critical that what you're saying. I mean, I'm still on MySpace. Okay, like, I'm like movie phone. Like, what movie would you? Oh well, and my IP address is like 792 on my computer or something like that. So I absolutely have to have someone who understands and speaks that language. And when they're talking to me, I'm really struggling with putting all the pieces together. Is there a protocol? Is there some education or training for it? I haven't come across it yet, other than just kind of realizing that this person is a very socially conscious and competent person. So I did have a person who was in my kind of age group doing it, and it wasn't working. We brought in a much younger person who just kind of understood all those things you were talking about and having a lot more success with it.
So Jeff, on behalf of all three of us up here, we appreciate you pointing out that you're 47 and you have an issue.
I would also add that more and more tools are finding the touch points to be ultra relevant to the team members, whether that's SMS or TikTok style or whatever. It's definitely not a paper application that you got to go pick up at the store, and it's like you got to find those touch points just to be as relevant as possible.
I'd like you to quickly address the man or woman that's been leading the teams, and that's the general manager, because they've had to deal with closed dining rooms, open dining rooms, no staff, get staff, delivery, non-delivery, all of those issues over the last 18 months, and what are you doing to retain your leadership within your units?
Yeah, we have a restaurant operating partner model. And so all of our restaurants are run by individuals who have skin in the game. So for us, that's been a very effective tool for building personal investment in each one of our restaurants and a vested interest financially in our successes. And so, I think if we just had straight salaried managers, it would be really, really tough right now. But given that our folks are built into the profit sharing, makes all the difference in the world. And, not to toot horns, but when we look at in our own franchise system, those who do not use the restaurant operating partner model do about 12% less volume in sales than those that do. So it's pretty easy to figure out if that's a financial return or not.
I think it's a leadership issue. The general manager and district leader teams, they are stressed. Boy, and it takes the leader of the company, the restaurant group, whatever it is, to keep this team cohesive, focused, strong, and moving forward. So I hear what you're saying with all these changes and all the dynamics that are going on, but I put it back on leadership to keep the team together and moving forward.
Getting out of the restaurant space for a second, I think we all can do a better job of coaching and encouraging people to find where they're going to win. I tell everybody that my job is to help you get where you want to go. I can't help you unless you tell me where you want to go, and even if that means you leaving us, I want to help you do that too.
Yep.
So I've got a question. So I'm not in the restaurant space, I'm in the home service space. So we're recruiting and hiring licensed professionals to go inside people's homes. One of the struggles that I find that we're dealing with is especially new franchisees being able to recruit well. So the candidate shows up to their door essentially, but then not being able to actually close the deal and all that stuff. So my question is, and maybe the attorneys could step out for a second so we could answer this honestly. To what level of involvement are you guys having with recruitment? And I know we can't hire with the joint employer restrictions there, but to what level of recruitment or involvement are you guys having with recruitment down to the franchisee level from the Azor level?
Finally, there's one Gary can't answer. So.
Oh, I have an answer.
We do quite a bit of sharing. Our current, I've been in multi-markets many times, but this particular time I'm in one market, but it's one big market. So we do a lot of sharing of employees, and we make sure that they know they can call our office and that we can move people around. We actually, on our financials now, we keep track in the labor section of our financials of labor borrowed and labor loaned, and that's part of our bonus program too. If you're the loaner and not the borrower, you're going to make a better bonus.
Folks, we're going to take one more question.
Well, if I could just add on to that, for us, it's training. When we have an operator that is failing to hire effectively, for me, that's training. And so we have designated field trainers that'll go out and meet with franchisees and their management and teach them to fish, if you will, and also help them understand where they're failing to close. and really focusing in on what we can improve on to help them stay in the game.
If I could add something here, and this is for all the operators in here, because the emerging franchise concept that Lane has innovated and has made iconic, seriously. Having been an emerging franchisor many times, you never have the opportunity to pitch your potential hires as much as you do when you say you'll never, probably in your life, have this opportunity of touching so many pieces of the organization. You're going to wear so many hats, you're going to learn so many skills, you're going to have so many opportunities for advancement. And it's the best thing you can tell people that are just coming into the workforce.
One more question, and then we are going to call it.
Marty. So I will ask a similar question so I get an answer from Gary about that same question. The franchisor-franchisee relationship, typically the franchisee is responsible for all the hiring of the employees. That has seemed to shift a little bit, at least in my system, where the franchisees are expecting us to do more to help them. And I wonder if your franchisor is helping you, or if you want the franchisor to help you, or stay the hell out of your way.
Here's what I expect from my franchisors, really the assets that I need and the technology that I need, whether it's media assets, social media assets, whatever those tools are. I expect a full range of tools from them, not only the technology and the process tools, but the actual media itself. And to go back to the other question, yeah, you're going to struggle with, well, why is this franchisee not able to close the deal, not able to close? So if you have a broad range of franchisees, you got a group of people that are doing better, and that's where you need to get they're not expecting. I would expect you to maybe, I would hope that you would take a weaker franchisee in some regard and get him help from another franchisee so that he can get in the learning zone about how to close those deals or with employees or whatever that may be, because franchisees can be insular sometimes, and so you have to put a little energy behind getting them to reach out for help to the other franchisees.
All right, folks, let's give our esteemed panel a round of applause.
Thank you, guys.